For 6 years, they told you this boom was different. The post-COVID housing explosion was the new normal, but as you're about to see, it turns out they were wrong. We've already seen the meaningful drops in the hottest southern markets, a clear sign that the COVID super bubble is essentially over and just a matter of time before it spreads to the north. Today, we're zooming out to the entire American housing market to show you why these recent developments in the South aren't just corrections. This is the start of a systematic breakdown that mathematically is headed for a decline worse than the great financial crises. The market is changing and housing is going to look a lot different in the years that come. To grasp the sheer scale of this decline that's now unfolding, we first have to recognize the historical insanity of the past few years. As many of you know, this channel has consistently called the post-COVID surge exactly what it is, a massive speculation frenzy and a super bubble. It's pushed real estate values far beyond any semblance of normal. Now look at the receipts. Nationally, Zillow confirms the typical American home has gained a staggering 39% in value since November 2020, but that number is actually deceiving. While 39% is huge, it completely masks the true distortion in major regions. In fact, many cities, especially across parts of the Northeast and Midwest, have seen prices more than double, shattering all historical records and creating a mindset that any sort of decline isn't even possible. It's just endless returns forever. For the ultimate proof of this, we can look at regions where the bubble still hasn't even paused. Take my own Midwest Ohio Rust Belt County. According to Zillow data tracing back to 2017, this area has seen nothing but up for nearly 9 straight years. The typical home here has soared 64% in value, massively outpacing the already insane national increase of 39%. That's an average 7% annual return in a market that should be flattening by all opinions. This relentless growth has created a psychological super bubble. Imagine a buyer who bought any time during this period. They have never ever seen prices even come close to declining. Their equity swells by thousands every month and they're locked into mortgages under 4%. This isn't a golden era, it's a state of real estate nirvana. The only hints of weakness, 2 tiny blimps where values merely paused for a mere 60 or 90 days in 2021 and 2022, and then they were immediately erased. This means the idea that a crash is coming is not even registering in the minds of millions of buyers and sellers across the Midwest and the Northeast. This regional delusion is the ultimate fuel for a crash that is now, in my opinion, inevitable. Outside the obvious markets like Florida, Austin, and Tennessee, it's now becoming very apparent that the US market isn't what it once was. According to Zillow, 53% of homes have lost value according to their estimate. This is the highest share going back to May of 2012 when the last housing crash was bottoming out. In Denver, a jaw-dropping 91% of all homes lost value over the last year. Austin is right behind at 89%, and in Sacramento, Phoenix, and Dallas, over 87% of all homeowners are watching their equity bleed out. All told, 49 of the 64 biggest metros in the West and Sun Belt have seen the vast majority of their homes decline. Now, in sharp contrast, only 3 of the 36 major metros in the Northeast and Midwest have had majority declines over the past year. Minneapolis, where 55% of home values fell, Des Moines, and Scranton. While the losses have largely missed the Northeast and Midwest like I mentioned before, even Zillow predicts the declines are spreading to more homes in all metros. And of course, home values falling isn't just about spreadsheets, it's about fear. For millions of Americans, their home is their largest asset, and there's estimate that easily trackable value is basically their personal retirement savings account. When that number goes up, they feel rich. When it drops, they panic, and that psychological panic is already here. Since the peak in July 2022, most US homes have fallen from their highest value. The average peak-to-trough drawdown is now sitting at around 9.7% across the country. Now, the housing optimist will look at that 9.7% figure and say it's nothing. It's a far cry from the 27% average drawdown we saw in the great financial crisis bottom of 2012, and they're technically right. But this comparison is misleading and extremely dangerous. You see, over 53% of all US homes have lost value since last year, the highest share since the bottom of the last crisis in 2012. The localized drops in Austin and Florida are already approaching the worst levels of 2008, yet the overall national average still looks tame. Why? Because the Midwest and Northeast have artificially propped up the average by refusing to fall. When that regional delusion finally breaks, that 9.7% national average could easily double. The situation is unfolding in a way where half the country is very aware of the slipping weakness in the market, while the other half is completely delusionally propped up by 6 years of endless growth with no declines in sight. However, all of this is now spreading slowly to the north, and we will soon face a situation where overall the entire vibe shift will be realized across the country. Ultimately, in real estate, it's very hard for deep swift declines to appear in the price charts because sellers are often sticky. When neighbor Bob sold his house for $400,000 a few months ago, everyone in the neighborhood is under the impression that their home must be worth as much or more than Bob's. They are anchored to yesterday's prices, but when the market shifts and the buyers vanish, these sticky sellers quickly become delusional. They refuse to admit that the party is over and they begin the practice of delistment. This is simply when they can't sell, so they yank the listing completely off the market in hopes that things improve in the next few months. And this isn't a theory, we have the data. According to Redfin, the listings in the month of September are up a whopping 28% year over year, approaching levels not seen since 2017. Think about that. Nearly 85,000 US sellers threw in the towel and just pulled their homes. They didn't sell them, they just gave up because the market wouldn't validate their price. But the true sign of the market's pathology, the core sickness driving up this wave of delusion, is the stale listing problem. A listing is considered stale if it's been sitting in the market for more than 60 days without finding a buyer. In September, a massive 70% of all listings nationwide were considered stale. That means for 7 out of every 10 homes currently listed, nobody wanted to buy it at the asking price. The typical home that was delisted had sat there for 100 days before the seller finally hit the panic button and pulled it off the market. And this phenomenon is hitting the housing boom states the hardest, with cities in Florida and Texas leading the nation in both delistings and stale listings. And this matters because these delistings are actively creating a price floor. When tens of thousands of sellers pull their homes off the market instead of cutting the price, they artificially restrict the supply of homes that are actually available to buyers. It's a self-inflicted inventory shortage. These sticky, delusional sellers are preventing the price charts from reflecting the reality on the ground. They would rather take the listing down, become a temporary landlord, or just stay put and keep their 3% mortgage rate than admit that they missed the market peak and have to take a loss. This whole dynamic is a massive, slow-moving psychological war between sellers living in 2021 and buyers living in 2025, and it's why the decline in home prices will be agonizingly slow, drawn out, and filled with market confusion. Thank you guys for watching. As always, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed the content, and if you're a buyer or seller in the market today, I would love to hear from you in the comments below. Let me know where you're looking and what you're seeing.